We Are Displaced is a book written by Malala Yousafzai. Malala is a Nobel Peace Prize recipient for the advocating she has done for girls' education. She has written 2 other books and is also the subject of the documentary He Named Me Malala. Her profits from We Are Displaced are going to her charity Malala Fund, which is working for a world where every girl can learn and lead. We Are Displaced is split into 2 parts. In the first part, Malala shares the story of her own childhood, and in the second, she shares the stories of 10 refugee women. The stories in this book would connect with the grade 9 social studies, interaction, and interdependence outcomes, especially 9.2. Growing up, Malala lived in Swat Valley, Pakistan. At this time, the Taliban were in Afghanistan, and as a young child, they were not worried about the Taliban. However, in 2004, things started to change. Malala says, "Our country had begun a time of advancement for women, but our region was going backward. In 2003, my father opened his first high school, and boys and girls attended classes together. By 2004, co-ed classes were not possible." This is when the Taliban started to invade Pakistan. They discouraged girls from going to school. Malala still went. She was 11 when the Taliban started to bomb girls' schools. They did it at night so nobody got hurt. But people would show up to school the next day and their school would be gone. By the end of 2008, the Taliban said all girls' schools must be shut down by January 15, 2009. If they weren't, they would be bombed. Malala and her father spoke out about this. They were on the radio and television. Because it was such an unpopular opinion, the Taliban lifted the ban. Unfortunately, it was only lifted for girls up until the age of grade 4. Malala was in grade 5 at this time, but she pretended to be younger so she could continue on her education. In May 2009, the government called an evacuation and everyone had to leave Swat Valley. Malala and her family moved back and forth between family and friends' houses. When it was safe for them to finally move home, they did, and eventually they went back to school and life seemed to carry on. After a while, Malala said the anxiety from the Taliban seemed to fade. She continued to speak out for girls' education. On October 9, 2012, Malala was targeted by the Taliban and shot in the head. Luckily, she survived. She was transported to Birmingham, England, where she stayed in the hospital for weeks. Her family was moved there. While Malala was in the hospital, she received cards, emails, and more thanking her for speaking up for girls' education. She decided to keep going and to this day still does. In part 2 of the book, Malala shares 10 stories of other girls who are refugees. Before each story, she shares how she knows and met each one of these girls. There are 2 sisters who share their story. One sister received a visa and fled to the United States. The other did not receive a visa, but still fled to another country. Another was in a refugee camp that was speaking up for refugees' education. And there was another girl whose parents forced her to stay home at the age of 14 to become a housewife. And many more stories. We Are Displaced is an educational book that shares the stories of Malala and 10 other women who have been inspired by her. It shows the pain and suffering that a refugee may go through in their life.